Why we're escalating these concerns. So a week ago now, the maternity department decided to take selective industrial action of working in non-uniform in light of the decision of the non-renewals of the 3 gynaecologists that's taken place. The reason for that was quite simply there was no consultation with the maternity staff on this decision and the potential negative impact this could place on the service, because by not renewing all 3 in one go will lead to the service having locum appointments, which could be potentially detrimental to the service going forward, when the service has actually been on a steady improvement with these current individuals in place. And I think the rationale provided by the employer has been nonsensical. It seems an incredible coincidence that the 3 people coming up to a 4-year mark, where they could, once achieving the 4 years, could make a right to permanent employment within the GHA. Suddenly, concerns are found within their practice to not renew them. And I think the response that came out from the Gibraltar Health Authority and the Ministry of Health concerning the non-renewal was also quite distressing for those individuals and for us as an organisation, where it simply demonstrated that they do not care about tarnishing people's reputations of their own employees in the public eye. As an industrial organisation, we're simply not going to accept that sort of treatment to our members of Unite the Union in Gibraltar. So in terms of why we're now escalating, we've also had a meeting took place on Tuesday with the entire nursing general meeting of nurses of Unite members in St Bernard's Hospital, as well as the Primary Care Centre. From that meeting, it was decided to also hold a ballot of the entire nursing complement from that to decide whether they also want to join in the action, not just to do with the issues of the gynaecologist, but actually these issues of insecure contracts and terminating people coming up to the 4-year mark is actually more commonplace within nursing than other parts of healthcare in Gibraltar. So we did that ballot, and the result of that has been that it was a 98.4% in favour of also working in non-uniform, and that action has started this morning at 8 a.m.
What guarantees can you give that this won't have any impact on healthcare?
Well, one thing that we've made sure is that the action of taking non-uniform was also in compliance with infection control regulations by being below the elbow, and also as well we have, a change of uniform simply does not potentially damage the service, and we think as a union we cannot detriment services going forward. We don't rule out further escalations. But as the initial point of call, we think it's highly important we raise awareness of what's really going on in the Gibraltar Health Authority and how staff are being treated. I mean, we've had numerous casework come to our attention where a nurse is coming up to the 4-year mark, suddenly issues are found or excuses are given, and then they are then terminated but then re-engaged via a private agency and they find themselves working on the same ward. When we've spoke to members across all the different parts of the hospital and the PCC, they all know this practice takes place, and it's simply not acceptable. It's ethically wrong, and it's not in the interest of patients either.
What's the timeline for this industrial action, and how many people are involved?
So in terms of, we've had a situation in terms of the timeline that's very much dictated by the employer. From our point of view, the action is indefinite until the employer comes back to the table. We said in our most recent press release we are still open to come around to the table and find a proper ethical and legal solution to all this that's going on. They have not responded since our latest press release, and I think their silence is deafening. In terms of the amount of people involved in the dispute, the exact numbers I couldn't give you, but we're looking at the entire nursing complement within St Bernard's Hospital, as well as the PCC, are on board and voted for such action.
The GHA has said it will be recruiting substantively in parallel to recruiting locum cover. Is Unite reassured at all by this?
Well, when we met with the Minister for Health along with senior GHA management, it was said that it was the intention to recruit substantively, but no guarantee can be made. The reality is, if you treat people as poorly as they've done with the 3 members that we're speaking about today, the likelihood of people wanting to apply is going to be incredibly low. And the reality is, you're going to create a situation of a culture of fear and a culture of people not wanting their reputations tarnished in such a nasty way. We need to have further dialogue on the issue. We've requested that, but the employer has been hesitant to come forward as of yet. We made it very clearly that we were still open to try and get a solution which was far more appropriate. Our view was that the non-renewals should be rescinded, but they have still not budged on that issue, but we'll continue to fight it. And also we need to look at the wider picture of how the level of insecure employment in the public sector is still affecting a lot of members across nursing and elsewhere.
Now, a major overhaul of the GHA has of course been announced, with some detail given as to its shape. How satisfied is Unite with what's been proposed?
Well, I think we need to remain incredibly vigilant on the changes that have been proposed. I think there is a large degree of scepticism amongst the membership in terms of will this improve the organisation, purely on the basis of the current treatment of staff by the employer and by the Ministry of Health is simply leading staff to be very hesitant in, we've seen this all before, is a regular comment we are hearing. I mean, we remain open to hopefully seeing positive changes in the new year with the new structure, but like any structure, if it's filled with potentially the wrong people, if the new structure is done in a way to kind of sideline certain groups, then obviously that would be of great detriment to staff and patients alike. So are we satisfied? I think from our position right now, we remain incredibly vigilant to what those changes are, and we are still waiting further details to exactly what it is we'll be looking at in terms of where our organisation sits in these structures and how we can go about dealing with industrial relation matters.
It could be argued that the GHA overhaul has been given urgency by the wide-ranging criticisms made by the former head of clinical governance, Dr. Derek Burke. Unite dismissed some of his allegations as baseless ramblings, but given what's transpired since, do you feel there might have been some weight to his words?
The letters published by Derek Burke, I think it was last October, November time that they took place, were unsubstantiated allegations as far as we're concerned, and were highly inappropriate documents that were circulated to staff. And the way it was done so was incredibly damaging to, again, the morale of staff and their professional reputations as well. In terms of does his accusations have substance, I don't believe so. I think Derek was incredibly inaccurate and very disruptive in terms of how his influence on the organisation. In terms of what we see going forward, there are issues in the GHA, and that comes forward to our membership, and there is issues currently in how industrial relations is being handled by the Ministry of Health as well as the Gibraltar Health Authority, where issues are simply not being resolved, issues are stagnating, and that's what's causing the membership to feel as appalled and as let down by the organisation as they currently are.
In terms of ministerial involvement, one of the steps announced has been to move the ministry away from the GHA. Is Unite satisfied with this? Does it believe this will lead to less micromanagement, which is one of the criticisms that's been made?
Well, we've had a number of issues tabled to the Ministry of Health, way back in the summer actually, and we were, as an organisation, denied a meeting till late September, which we felt was highly inappropriate and highly damaging to have cordial and constructive industrial relations. In terms of having less ministerial involvement, it is something as an organisation I think we've always wanted to see, to have decisions led by clinicians, not politicians, on major clinical matters and also industrial matters too, and to let the clinicians kind of take the lead on the issues within the organisation. In terms of will it take place, I think this is the feedback we're getting, is members still remain sceptical that if they are even removed of the building, it would be welcome to see them removed out of the hospital. I think that would be a more appropriate thing to take place, but will they genuinely be able to resist the temptation of diving into operational matters into the GHA? Again, we'd have to wait and see, but certainly if the constant kind of micromanaging continues to take place, regardless of what structures could put in, we will be back to square one.
How involved has Unite been in the run-up to the announcement of these reforms, and how much consultation is there set to be in future?
There was meetings some time ago in terms of, obviously, when we had the last walkout of issues of the structure of the organisation, which we put forward certain suggestions. In terms of the detailed proposals that have been put forward, I think in the organisation's view, there has not been enough consultation, and we would have expected a lot more and had a greater insight and greater kind of dialogue on how these changes would come about going forward. That's why we remain very vigilant in terms of looking at these changes, because we want to make sure that we are greater involved. And in terms of the opinions of the membership, I think it's only right that, as the organisation representation, as an organisation, we're representing the health and care workers, that on their behalf we get their feedback into these structures. They're the ones on the front line, they're the ones seeing the patients all across the community. If their views are not put through and acknowledged within this restructure, then again, is it really going to be in the interest of patients and staff? So we want to see greater consultation going forward, absolutely. There wasn't enough before, we need to make sure there's more going forward.